Journey of Enlightenment. I am your host, Dr. Gopaul. If we ask the typical person, what is your main goal in life? What is it that you really want above all else? Most likely, the answer would be happiness. Even if we choose other words such as satisfaction, contentment, joy, peace, it all goes back to that state of happiness. Have you ever wondered why? Why is it that happiness is something that we always revert to? If we are in pain, we long for relief. If we are hurt, we long to be comforted. If we are hungry, we long to be filled. Why? Because happiness is our nature. So no matter what happens in our lives, we tend to go right back to the basic state of our nature, which is to be happy. And it is the right of every individual, no matter what our nationality is or our ethnic, cultural background, we all have the right to be happy. The challenge we face: how do we experience happiness? Or is happiness something to be experienced? Is happiness something to be pursued? One country has in its constitution that every human being has a right to pursue happiness. And in fact, many years ago, a movie was made on that topic, the pursuit of happiness. Today we will discuss this topic, the essence of happiness, and is happiness truly achievable in our lives? In the Ramayana, it is told that despite all that we have and all the devices we possess, a man cannot be happy unless there is a sense of divinity in his thought, in his word, and in his deed. It is quite interesting the particular order of happiness that is given. The order is thought, word, and deed, versus deed, word, and thought. It seems as though the writer of the Ramayana is trying to tell us that happiness first comes from the condition of our mind, rather than an object outside of ourselves. In the movie, The Pursuit of Happiness, the main character was in a state of distress. Why? Because he was in financial woes. He was unable to make ends meet, to take care of his family. So he interpreted happiness as being that financial liberation. There is nothing wrong with pursuing financial goals. There's absolutely nothing wrong in trying to better ourselves. In fact, if we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he said that the first and most fundamental aspect of our lives revolve around our physiological needs: food, shelter, which is part of our happiness. So the movie displayed the main character pursuing his career in order to be financially free, which brought happiness, the pursuit of happiness. But Dale Carnegie challenged that thought process. He looked at happiness not in terms of what we have or what we do or who we are, but as something far deeper. Dale Carnegie said, and I quote, "It isn't what you have or who you are or where you are or what you are doing that makes you happy or unhappy. It is what you think about it." According to Dale Carnegie, in this particular quote, you can have much or you can have little. Who you are or who you are not in terms of your position or your rank or your function matters not in terms of your happiness. Where you are, some people hope to be on the tallest mountain of the world, escaping all of society, escaping all the responsibilities that we are burdened with day in and day out. And we believe that at that point we might be happy. And Dale Carnegie is saying, no, it's not where you are. Others say that, well, when I am in this particular job or doing this particular kind of work, then I will be happy. And Dale Carnegie again said, no, that is not happiness. He said happiness can be in any situation that you are in. Whatever that you have, whatever you do, whoever you are, and wherever you are, it is all based upon what you think about it. Happiness is therefore the condition of the mind, our thought processes. It is not an external factor that makes us happy, but ourselves. A choice that we make, the way we see things, the way we perceive it. But to a large extent, how we define happiness, how we understand happiness, how we interpret happiness comes from our own upbringing. Our self-worth, that environment in which we grew, to a large extent forms the way we see things, the way we see ourselves, the way we interpret ourselves. That comes from our parents or our caregivers and the environment in which we live. So people who may have had a very difficult childhood or a very traumatic childhood can be prone to interpret the world in that particular way. The world is difficult. The world is traumatic. The world is against me. Such persons, even if they reach very high-ranking positions in their jobs or in society, may still feel this sense of insecurity, this sense of low self-worth, because that is how the mind was conditioned. Therefore, their happiness is not based upon an external factor, but it is actually based upon how they perceive themselves. Similarly, our self-image, which is how we perceive others and how we believe others perceive us, determines how happy we are, how happy we feel. There's a particular case with this girl called Suzette. Suzette's situation was quite unfortunate. She was married, and during that marriage realized that her husband was seeing someone else. The husband then left Suzette, and in speaking with her, she described certain feelings. She said that I am lonely. No one would ever love me. I hate my life. I don't even see the reason for living anymore. There's no purpose behind it. Now her situation was indeed very tragic and very difficult for anyone to face, for anyone to endure. But it was not impossible for her or anyone in that situation to once again find purpose and find happiness. The question is how? And the answer is not easy. It is a process sometimes that takes a while. It takes a long while. With Suzette, it was a matter of looking at the situation from another perspective. Not denying the truth of the situation, not denying the difficulty of the situation, but rather looking at the situation from another aspect of mental conditioning, mental truth, which is, yes, what your husband did to you is very wrong and very unfortunate. But you might be lonely in terms of his company, but you are definitely not alone in this world, because your friends are there to support you. Your family is there to support you. Your parents love you, and you can lean on them for that extra support that you may need at this point in time. To convince yourself that you are lonely, that you are the only person in this world, is an untruth. Because there are others who are there standing with you, standing for you while you go through this dilemma in your life. Suzette said, I hate my life, therefore I cannot be happy. The question is, do you hate your life or do you hate this particular situation? And hate is a very strong word. There are so many things in Suzette's life that she can look back on and be pleased with, be happy with. She has a daughter, a beautiful little child. Isn't that something to be happy about? A healthy child. Isn't that something to be happy about? She has a good job. She has parents who love her. So while the situation may not be desirable, life itself and her life is not something to be hated. She said, I don't see the reason to live anymore. Is that also true? Did you live before this individual? And while life may have changed, it is not impossible to continue living and find happiness. A great possibility exists that if you change the way you think, if you change the way you interpret life, you can find so many ways to find purpose again. And that purpose is not dependent upon the way someone treats you or what they say to you, but is based upon what you wish for yourself, what you want for yourself. What are your goals? What purpose you set that brings that joy and that happiness to you? Someone might have done you wrong, yes, but you do have the power and also the responsibility to make life right for you. In her case, it was a matter of shifting her self-talk from that of negativity in terms of I cannot be happy, I will never be happy, happiness escapes me, into identifying the truth about your life. identifying what it is that you can do, what you are responsible for in terms of your happiness. And that's the beauty of it. We are all responsible for our thought processes, the way we see things. It is a mental conditioning. We may have a lot in life, but while we do have so much, it may not necessarily make us happy. If it is filled with greed, if it is filled with pride, and if it is filled with fear of even losing what we have. We may have certain positions in terms of who I am, but we may not be happy if it is filled with ego, if it is filled with this desire for popularity and fame, and the need to belong to a certain segment of society where we constantly yearn to fit in, then we still cannot be happy. We say that we might be happy if there's a certain place we are in. And the answer to that is no, because you're still with yourself no matter where you go. And if the mind is unhappy, then you are still with your mind wherever you may be. And you still cannot experience happiness. Someone told me recently that they can be in heaven and experience hell if the mind is in such a condition. And they can be in hell and experience heaven if the mind is in peace, in equipoise, and in balance. In the case of Suzette, she had to learn eventually that her happiness was her responsibility. And despite the difficulty that she faced, she was still the one in charge of her life. And she had to learn how to accept that responsibility. It was not easy, but it was possible. We sometimes go about life with this sense of despair, discouragement, or depression. Sometimes we just don't know what to do. And we depend on so many factors external to us to bring that sense of happiness. Let us step inward, go into our own selves, and identify that happiness from within. If you find yourself unable to identify that happiness, unable to break free of such negative or depressing thoughts, never hesitate to reach out to a professional. Our program is not meant to substitute professional help. And if you find yourself in that particular situation where you just can't seem to find the answers, reach out to someone. Do not be afraid. Thank you very much for joining me on this session, Journey of Enlightenment, the Essence of